Welcome to how to program and operate the Icom ID-880H amateur radio transceiver. This is a tutorial for new hams, hams with a new-to-them radio, hams with an Icom radio, or anyone interested in amateur radio. I'm Milt Reynolds, KJ7, PPX in Boise, Idaho, calling QST. Episode 7, D-Star, Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. In this episode, I begin wading through something that has been difficult to understand, time-consuming to sort through, and confusing to organize: digital voice mode, specifically D-Star, Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. I've made good progress in understanding D-Star. I've successfully accessed a local D-Star repeater station and contacted stations in Florida and California. I've listened to D-Star traffic from as far away as the Bahamas, South Korea, and the United Kingdom. So join me as I help you all dip your toes into the waters of D-Star, Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. In previous episodes, we've covered the following controls. Number 1, the menu. Number 2, memory write, stores the frequency settings. Number 3, tuning dial. Number 4, band mode selector. Number 5, variable frequency operation mode. Number 6, memory channel mode. The next two front panel controls, number 7 and 8, should be considered together because they both connect to digital voice mode and the D-Star system. DR, the D-Star repeater selector, and CS, the D-Star call sign selection. These two front panel buttons control the D-Star and digital voice modes. Following an all reset, the DR and the CS control buttons have only limited functionality. Tap DR. The display indicates no repeater. The transceiver has not yet been programmed to access a D-Star repeater. Tap DR to exit. Now long press DR. The display indicates DV and CQCQCQ. DV indicates that the radio is now in digital voice mode, and CQCQCQ is a call sign used in digital communications to contact anyone listening. Here's how to exit DV mode. Tap DR to exit the CQCQ screen. Long press the dial. Dial to FM. Tap the dial to switch to FM mode. The display now indicates FM, meaning frequency modulation mode. The CS call sign button is used to display 4 different D-Star call signs. I've not yet programmed these call signs, so 3 of the following call sign screens are still blank. Long press DR to switch back to the D-Star repeater mode. Tap DR to exit CQCQCQ. The display still indicates digital voice mode, the DV. Tap CS. The display indicates you are CQCQCQ. Rotate the dial to view 4 different screens. We're looking now at the UR screen, which is the destinations call sign. Next screen is R1. That's the call sign into the D-Star repeater. Next screen is R2, the call sign outgoing from the D-Star repeater. And finally, MY. This is the originator's call sign. The UR destination call sign will be the station I'm attempting to contact. The MY originator's call sign will be mine, my personal FCC assigned call sign, KJ7 PPX. Both the R1 and R2 call signs will typically be the same call sign, the call sign of the D-star repeater, which I'm accessing in order to contact the destination's call sign. However, appended to the R1 and R2 call signs will be single character commands to the repeater, which determine what frequency band and what D-star network will be used. R1 will transmit the command to receive my signal into the repeater. R2 will transmit the command to send my signal out to a different frequency band or a different D-star network. All of this means, at least for me, that an overview of D-star is next on my Learn How To priority list. So let's jump from the two front panel controls, DR and CS, into some fundamentals regarding D-star. The ID-880H allows access to specialized repeaters that are in the D-star system, Digital Smart Technologies for Amateur Radio. Created by Japan Amateur Radio League, JARL, and introduced to the world at the 2003 Amateur Radio Festival in Tokyo, D-star is a way of transmitting and receiving digital voice signals through networked digital-capable radios and repeaters. The D-star system allows direct digital communication between digital-capable transceivers and repeaters. One of the weaknesses of the traditional analog repeater operation is that stations relying upon the repeater to communicate with each other must all be located within the repeater's transmission area. They all must be in the same regional area as the repeater station. The D-star system overcomes that weakness. D-star can also incorporate internet-capable gateways that can network many stations over great distances. 4 terms are used to describe D-star repeaters: area, the operating area around or surrounding one specific repeater; zone, a group of repeaters linked by a 10 GHz backbone; link repeater, a 10 GHz repeater linked to another repeater; and a gateway repeater, an internet-connected repeater. D-star basics. Here are some essential guidelines for D-star operators. Always listen for at least 10 seconds before you transmit. Take note of the information on the display that the local repeater is sending to you immediately after you finish transmitting. Make sure your transceiver is correctly set up with the appropriate call sign values. Allow a 4-second gap at least between transmissions. Limit transmissions to less than 3 minutes. Always make sure that your transceiver is properly reset after the contact communication has ended. The 3-minute limit to transmissions is enforced by most D-star repeaters in order to prevent overheating issues. The repeater will likely terminate your signal after 3 minutes. The ID-880H has a timeout timer for digital repeater operation. The timer limits continuous transmission to approximately 10 minutes. Warning beeps will sound 30 seconds before the timeout and then again immediately before the timeout. Step 1. Register your call sign. Registration allows access to advanced features of the D-star system, including connecting to long-distance networks of linked D-star repeater stations. Registration is not required for simplex communication, radio to radio, or to access a local D-star repeater. However, registration is required for signals to be retransmitted over the Internet through a gateway D-star repeater. The Internet-capable gateway repeater allows contact with stations worldwide. A detailed description of how to register with the D-star system is available in another episode. For now, here's a good overview of the registration process. First, search the Internet for a local D-star repeater station with gateway access to the Internet. 2. Create an account on that gateway repeater's website. And 3. Receive email confirmation for your account. Registration is free. It may take a few days for confirmation to be sent. A good place to search the internet for nearby D-Star internet-capable gateway repeater stations is dstarusers.org. D-Star repeaters have a controller device, which controls how your radio communications are handled. The controller receives your transmitted signal and sends the signal to the correct place in the D-Star network. That correct place may be in your local area, or it may be routed across the country or even to another continent. A key concept of D-Star is this: you are using a local D-Star repeater station to make connections to other D-Star repeater stations or D-Star networks. There are two types of connections made by a D-Star repeater controller: routing, which is controlled by the PTT button of your radio, and linking, which is controlled by the D-Star network. A routing connection begins when you press the PTT button of your radio. Releasing the PTT terminates the connection. A linking connection begins when you send a linking signal to the repeater controller. The link does not terminate automatically. You must send an unlink signal to the repeater to terminate the connection. A D-Star reflector is simply a computer. A D-Star reflector is not a radio, and it does not receive or transmit radio frequency signals. D-Star reflectors are often located in a data center with good internet connectivity. A reflector can handle multiple connections, while a D-Star repeater can handle only one connection at a time. Multiple D-Star repeaters can be connected to a single D-Star reflector. D-Star reflectors are always linked to, but never linked from. In other words, a D-Star repeater is required to link to a single D-Star reflector. That single reflector is unable to initiate links to any other repeater or reflector. The link must always begin with a D-Star repeater. Because hundreds of repeaters may be linked to a single reflector, it is easy to send your signal to hundreds of locations anywhere around the world. The D-Star repeater controller looks for 4 specific signals sent by your radio in the form of D-Star call signs: originator, repeater 1, repeater 2, and destination. These 4 call signs may be labeled differently depending upon your radio and your location. For the ID-880H, here are the labels. Originator is labeled My. Repeater 1 is labeled RPT1. Repeater 2, RPT2. And destination is labeled UR. These 4 D-Star call signs have specific functions. Think of them as commands to the repeater rather than simple identifiers. Originator is My, the call sign assigned to me by the FCC. The repeater 1 call sign, RPT1, is the call sign and frequency port going into the repeater. Repeater 2, RPT2, is the call sign and port going out of the repeater. And finally, the destination call sign, UR, is the call sign of the station or operator I am contacting. The RPT1 and RPT2 call signs and ports are the path through which My is contacting UR. The 2 repeater call signs and ports are the path through which I am contacting another operator or station. For local contacts, RPT1 and RPT2 will be assigned the same repeater call sign and port. For contacts that require routing or linking to repeater networks involving multiple repeaters, RPT1 and RPT2 will be assigned the same repeater call sign with different port assignments. During a session on air, making many different contacts, using many different repeaters and frequencies, or initiating test procedures on the system. RPT1 and RPT2 and the destination call sign UR may change several times. However, there is one call sign which is not likely to change often, if ever: my, the originator's call sign. Radio regulations require operators to send their call sign at the beginning and end of every amateur radio contact communication, including every 10 minutes if the transmission is very long. The D-Star system does that digitally, requiring the radio to have the my call sign programmed as my FCC assigned call sign. Think of my as an automatic "this is me" station identification signal. Transmitting my call sign also allows the D-Star system to manage the connections that the repeater controller will make on my behalf. The controller must know who I am. The my call sign is my electronic identity on the D-Star system. Typically, repeater 1 and repeater 2 are the same repeater. The two call signs, RPT1 and RPT2, are used to enter and then exit the local D-Star repeater. A D-Star repeater call sign may have up to 7 characters, but following those 7 characters, the 8th character is always reserved for a special command character. Depending upon the 8th character, your signal may exit the local repeater and be routed or linked to a distant repeater or reflector, or your signal may be confined to only the local area. The call sign assigned to RPT1 is the call sign of the local repeater I'm using to access the D-Star system. Whether that call sign is short, with only 5 characters, or whether it has 7 characters, there will be a special character placed at the end, in the 8th character place, to indicate what frequency band I'll be using to access the repeater. The call sign assigned to RPT2 is the same call sign. It may have the same special character in the 8th place, or it could be different. But the point here is that typically, RPT1 and RPT2 both refer to the same D-Star repeater station. RPT1 allows me into the local D-Star repeater. RPT2 allows me out from that local D-Star repeater to a different D-Star network of repeaters. RPT2 can also allow me to command the repeater to retransmit my signal using a different frequency band, or to a different area or zone of the D-Star system, even to another county, another state, or another country. The UR call sign defines to whom I am speaking. It could be an operator within the range of my local repeater, or it could be a specific operator nearby, or an operator somewhere in another part of the country or world. Specifically, the UR call sign directs the D-Star repeater to allow me to do the following: talk locally, talk to a specific call sign anywhere in the world, talk to a specific repeater or reflector, talk to a specific group of repeaters, send a command to the local repeater. The UR call sign can be configured to command the repeater to link or unlink connections, to transmit the current status of a link, or to perform an echo test. If there is no RPT1 call sign programmed, my signal will go no farther than to a nearby ham who's tuned to the same frequency on which I am transmitting. If there is no RPT2 call sign programmed, my signal will go no farther than my local repeater. If the UR call sign is programmed with CQCQCQ, my signal will go to any nearby ham. Some operators may refer to it as sending a CQ, but the actual call sign command used and understood by D-Star is the complete CQCQCQ signal. If the UR call sign is programmed with a specific operator's call sign, my signal will go only to that specific ham. The D-Star repeater system utilizes electronic ports, which are accessed through the station's call sign. The D-Star repeater call sign must include the appropriate port designation, A, B, C, D, or G. Port may also be named module or node in some systems. Port A is assigned to the 23 centimeter band. Port B is assigned to the 70 centimeter band. Port C assigned to the 2 meter band. And port D assigned to the 23 centimeter band data only. And port G is assigned to an internet gateway. Port D is data only for the 23 centimeter band, a signal that is not converted to voice. D-Star call signs may have up to 8 characters, but the port designation is always added to the D-Star call sign in the 8th position. For example, the FCC may assign a D-Star repeater station the call sign of W7VOI. The owner of this repeater station may configure a 2-meter D-Star controller. That 2-meter controller would be given a port designation of port C. C is the standard port assigned for 2-meter frequency access. So, to access this D-Star repeater, my radio must be programmed with the 2-meter port C call sign, W7VOI, 2 blank spaces, and then the letter C. Notice the 2 blank spaces. The port designation must always and only be placed in the 8th position. The same programming rule applies to an internet-capable gateway D-Star repeater. To have my signal be retransmitted out of the D-Star repeater to the internet, I must have my radio programmed with the gateway call sign. In this case, W7VOI, 2 blank spaces, and then the letter G. The letter G directs the D-Star repeater to retransmit my signal out to an internet-connected network of D-Star repeaters. Not all D-Star repeaters have all 5 ports, but most have at least one radio frequency port and an internet gateway port. The D-Star system requires your personal FCC-issued call sign be programmed into your radio. This provides an automatic "This is me" transmission of your call sign, as required by the FCC. So, every scenario or connection to a D-Star station, repeater, or reflector will require your radio to have the My call sign programmed. It will rarely, if ever, need to be changed. For me, my call sign is KJ7PPX. Here's to enter my call sign. Tap CS to exit D-Star call sign mode. Tap Menu. Rotate the dial to call S. And tap Money. Rotate the dial to My. Tap Money. The display indicates a blinking My 1. You can rotate the dial to see that there are 6 different channel assignments that could be made. You could have 6 different My call signs. The ID-880H allows saving up to these 6 different My call sign channel numbers to accommodate different operators. Up to 60 different UR call signs may be stored to memory, and up to 300 RPT call signs may be stored. I'm going to select My 1. Tap Low to enter the first character of my call sign. Rotate the dial to select that first character. And then we'll repeat that process for each of the following characters of my call sign. Tap low to cursor to the right, dial to J, cursor over to 7, cursor over. My call sign may have up to 8 characters. I can tap CS to backspace if I need to. I can tap DR to clear. I can long press DR to clear all the characters following the cursor. It's possible but not required to add a 4-digit label, perhaps to identify radio type or operating area. If I wanted to do that, I would tap low repeatedly to display a forward slash. Then I could rotate the dial and choose 4 characters. Adding a label to your call sign should be done with caution. One of the features of D-Star is call sign routing, which uses the entire call sign, including any additional label characters. This could lead to confusion. So unless you specifically require different labels, it is best to use only your FCC call sign for my call sign with no additional label characters. So I'm going to cursor left and press and hold DR. It beeps, and now I've got all those following those label characters deleted. Okay, I've entered my call sign. Tap Mani to save. Tap Menu to exit programming mode. Here's how to verify my call sign. Long press DR to display UR CQCQCQ. Tap DR to exit the CQ screen. Notice that the display indicates DV now, digital voice mode. In DV mode, tap CS. The display indicates the current UR call sign of CQCQCQ. Dial to my, and there's my call sign. Tap CS to exit the current call sign display. Here's how to exit DV mode. Long press the dial. Dial to FM. Tap dial to confirm and exit. The display now indicates FM, frequency modulation mode. That's quite a bit to digest in one episode. We've described some fundamental concepts and considerations regarding D-Star, digital smart technologies for amateur radio. We've seen the 4 essential call sign commands required to access and retransmit a signal through a D-Star repeater. And we've seen how to program the ID-880H for the one essential D-Star call sign, the My call sign. This has been how to program and operate the Icom ID-880H amateur radio transceiver. Thank you for watching, for liking, and for subscribing to my channel at youtube.com/Milt Reynolds. I'm Milt Reynolds, KJ7PPX in Boise, Idaho, and I'll be clear on your final 73.